Riley didn't believe in omens. Not when the florist ran late. Not when the cake was delivered with the wrong initials. Not even when the power went out halfway through the rehearsal dinner. But the phone was different. It buzzed on the counter, lit up with a name Riley knew too well. Matt. His best friend. His best man. He wasn't the jealous type, not really. But something about the way the message preview lingered. Last night was amazing. Don't forget to delete this. He stared at it, blinked, waited for it to vanish, hoping he'd misread it, misunderstood, something, anything, but it didn't vanish. And neither did the sinking feeling in his gut. His fiancé walked in with 2 mugs of coffee and a carefree smile. Riley's voice came out before he could stop it. Did you forget to delete something, Evan? The smile faded. The next thing he knew, he was on the side of a road in a suit that suddenly felt too tight, holding a bottle of wine like a lifeline. His tie was gone. His boutonniere had been stomped into the pavement somewhere back in the parking lot. And his heart? Still cracking. Still trying to figure out how 10 years of friendship and 3 years of love could shatter with one stupid message. He wasn't crying. Definitely not. His eyes were reacting to the cold. That's all. When his phone buzzed again, he didn't even check it. Probably Evan, or worse, Matt. Instead, he typed one word into his rideshare app, work. The car dropped him off at the first venue it found. Somewhere fancy. Loud music, glittering lights. People dressed like they had something to prove. He was at the company's quarterly gala. Great. He nearly turned around, until he spotted the open bar. He was 2 glasses deep into something that tasted like regret and elderflower when he heard a voice behind him. Cool. Measured. Familiar. Mr. Lane. Riley turned, and there he was. James Whitaker, CEO, boss, resident ice sculpture in a $1,000 suit. Riley straightened up a little too fast, sloshing his drink. Oh hi, Mr. Whitaker. I am just supporting the company. James' eyes flicked over him. The crumpled tie in his pocket, the wine stain on his sleeve, the hollow look Riley hadn't realized he was wearing. You look like hell, James said flatly. Thanks, Riley muttered, sipping again. That's exactly the look I was going for. Drowned rat meets runaway groom. James tilted his head. Is that a confession or a metaphor? Both, Riley said. Then with a bitter laugh, I was supposed to get married next week. Turns out my fiancé prefers my best friend. Which is, adorable. There was a pause. James didn't offer sympathy. Didn't say he was sorry. Instead, he said, I see. Riley snorted. That's it? You see. I don't pretend to understand love, Mr. Lane. But I do understand contracts. Riley blinked. What? James stepped closer, lowering his voice. I need a spouse. Temporarily. You need an exit. Public. Clean. Preferably with photos. We can help each other. You want to marry me? I want to appear married. For 6 months, there's a deal on the table that requires a married executive. Investors like stability. Riley stared at him. You're joking. I never joke, James said. There's a prenup, of course. Terms, boundaries. You're serious. As a heart attack. Which this conversation is giving me, Riley muttered. James' gaze didn't waver. You can go home, drink yourself into a stupor, and let everyone believe you were dumped and humiliated. Or you show up on social media next week, smiling beside your very wealthy, very eligible husband, and let them wonder who really won. Riley hesitated, swallowed hard, and then he whispered, more to himself than anyone, God help me. I think I just might. The next morning, Riley woke up in a penthouse that looked like it belonged on the cover of Forbes. Floor-to-ceiling windows, brutalist furniture, coffee table books no one had ever opened. The only sound was the soft hum of a cappuccino machine and the distant click of dress shoes. Riley sat up on the designer couch, hair askew, blazer half slid off one shoulder, and muttered, Okay, so that wasn't a dream. It was a poor decision, came James' voice from the kitchen. But unfortunately a real one. Riley groaned. Do all rich people have kitchens that look like art installations and never get used? I use the wine fridge, James replied dryly, and the ice drawer, occasionally both at once. Riley dragged himself upright. Did we actually get married last night, or is this still just phase 1 of my breakdown? James walked into view with 2 mugs, perfectly symmetrical in his hands of course, and handed one over. We did not get married last night. I don't do impulsive. I do scheduled. Riley blinked. You mean we're getting married, today? Correct, James said calmly. The license is filed. The officiant has been arranged. The paperwork is at my office. And the prenup? In your inbox. Paragraph 7 will offend you, paragraph 11 will reassure you, and paragraph 22 contains a joke. Try not to miss it. Riley took a long sip of coffee. It was disgustingly perfect. You really had all this ready to go. I've had it ready for years, James said with a shrug. I just never found someone desperate enough. Wow, Riley muttered. So romantic. I can't wait to tell our fake kids the story. James gave him a look. We're not faking children. I draw the line at small talk and toddlers. Riley stared at him. You're a delight. Has anyone told you that today? You did, James said. Just now. I'm logging it for the record. By noon, Riley had signed a prenup, agreed to a 6-month arrangement, and was standing outside a courthouse in a suit that definitely hadn't been tailored for him. James, of course, looked like he'd been born in his suit, crisp charcoal gray, no wrinkles, no mercy. They stepped inside. The ceremony was brief, clinical, almost absurd. Riley half expected James to pull out a clipboard and ask him to initial next to honor and obey, but instead, when the judge asked if they took each other as husbands, James looked right at him. His voice didn't waver. I do. Riley hesitated, just for a second, and then, I do too. Sure. Why not? The judge blinked. That's not the traditional wording, Mr. Lane. Sorry, Riley said. Been kind of a week. Afterwards, James held the door open for him like a gentleman, or maybe a robot trying to pass the Turing test. So, Riley said as they walked down the steps, do I call you husband now? Or your majesty? Or maybe just boss daddy? James didn't flinch. Try that last one in public and I will send you to an undisclosed property in Alaska with no Wi-Fi. Riley grinned. Kinky. I am already regretting this, James muttered. They slid into the back of a sleek black car James had summoned with all the emotion of ordering sushi. Riley glanced at him. You really don't do feelings, do you? I do contracts, logistics, strategic partnerships. Right, Riley said. And I'm just a tax write-off with a decent face. James looked at him unreadable. You're a very convenient face. There's a difference. Riley leaned his head back and sighed. You know what's wild? This is still somehow less emotionally complicated than my actual engagement. James raised an eyebrow. I've known you less than 24 hours as a husband, and I already believe that. Riley laughed, and to his own surprise, it wasn't bitter. Just tired. You're really something, Whitaker. And yet, James said calmly, here you are, married to me anyway. The next time Riley saw Evan again, he was holding a champagne flute and wearing a smirk, hosting a fancy business gathering. Riley wanted to throw up, or throw something. Instead, he adjusted the cuff of his sleeve and smiled, tight, polished, practiced. The same one James wore like armor. Riley? Evan's voice was coated in disbelief. Wow, you actually came. I was invited, Riley said smoothly. Apparently some people still like me. Evan blinked. I just meant after everything. Riley arched a brow. You mean after you cheated on me with my best friend? Right. Refreshing memory. Thanks. Evan's smile faltered. That's not fair. No, you're right, Riley said lightly. Fair would be getting my deposit back for a wedding that never happened. Before Evan could respond, a shadow fell across them. James, tall, impeccable, utterly unreadable, he slid beside Riley with a glass in one hand and an expression carved from stone. Is this the ex? He asked, calm as ever. Evan blinked. I'm sorry, who are you? James Whitaker, he said, extending a hand but not warmth. Riley's husband. Evan went pale. Riley didn't say a word, just sipped his drink and watched Evan's face implode in slow motion. You... what? You got married? James turned to Riley. You didn't tell him? I must have forgotten, Riley said with a mock pout. We've been very busy, newlywed bliss and all. Evan opened his mouth, then closed it, and then, just like that, he walked away. Riley exhaled sharply. James didn't move. Was that satisfying? Deeply, Riley muttered. And maybe just a little bit terrifying. James nodded once. You're welcome. That night, back at the penthouse, they sat on opposite ends of the couch, with a movie playing and a bowl of popcorn between them. Riley had his legs up. James had a spreadsheet open. I still can't believe you said, is this the ex? Riley muttered, tossing popcorn at him. James didn't flinch. Would you have preferred I say, is this the man who clearly peaked at his college graduation? Riley burst out laughing. Okay, that's accurate. Rude, but accurate. James glanced at him, lips twitching just slightly. I've been told I have a gift. You have a spreadsheet open during the Princess Bride, Riley said, grabbing his laptop and closing it. You're a monster. It's a cult classic, not an actual princess. You have no soul. You redecorated my living room with throw pillows that say, bless this mess, blur even. Riley grinned. Admit it, you like them. I tolerate them, James said. That's as good as it gets. The tension simmered for days. They flirted by accident, argued with intensity. Riley brought warmth into James' cold world, and James kept trying not to notice. But then came the night everything changed. Riley posted a photo, a casual selfie in James' kitchen, still half asleep, wearing one of James's button-ups. It blew up within minutes. James came home to chaos. You need to take that down, he said, voice low, controlled. It's a shirt, Riley snapped. Not a sex tape. It's my shirt. And people are speculating. Let them, Riley said. That was the point, remember? There's a difference between appearing married and handing tabloids ammunition. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I needed your permission to exist on the internet. James stepped closer. You don't, but you're not just Riley anymore. You're my husband, and what you do reflects on me. That did it. Riley shoved his hands through his hair, furious. God, you really are a robot, aren't you? Is there a setting between cold and condescending, or is that extra? James' jaw tensed. You think this is easy for me? Oh, forgive me. Riley spat. I forgot this was hard for you living in your skyscraper, married to a human prop. They were close now, too close. James's voice dropped. You think I don't see you? The way you laugh, the way you push your sleeves up when you're nervous, the way you're so damn alive all the time it's unbearable. Riley's breath hitched. Then do something about it. And James did. The kiss was sudden, sharp, hungry. Riley grabbed his collar. James gripped his waist. Their worlds collided. They stumbled toward the bedroom, lips locked, hands frantic, and then James pulled back. This is a contract, he said, breathless. Don't confuse it. Riley froze. His heart felt like it had cracked open. I see, he whispered. James turned away. Riley didn't follow. He slept in the guest room that night, and for the first time since the arrangement began he wished it had never started at all. The following week things were awkward. The silence between them wasn't loud. It was clinical. James still made coffee in the morning. Riley still took it with too much cream and exactly 3 sugars. They still rode in the same car, sat in the same meetings, answered the same questions about their marriage. But they didn't look at each other anymore. Not the same way. Not since that night. James leaned against the elevator wall. Suit perfect, eyes shadowed. I have a trip next week. Board gala in Chicago. They'll expect both of us. Riley didn't look up from his phone. Sure. James waited a beat. It's black tie. Riley's fingers tapped. Noted. Then James added carefully, you redecorated the den. Riley finally looked at him, blankly. I was bored. The elevator dinged. James didn't follow him out right away. The Chicago ballroom was dipped in gold and glass and polite laughter. Riley wore a tuxedo James had tailored for him. He smiled for the cameras, held James' hand when expected. They looked like the perfect couple from the outside, but James felt the distance like a weight in his chest. Every time Riley laughed at someone else's joke, every time he turned away just before their eyes met, James missed him, missed them whatever they had started to build. Then came the toast. Someone tapped a glass. A mic was passed. Would love to hear from the newlyweds. Come on, Mr. Whitaker. Tell us your secret. James opened his mouth, but Riley stepped forward first. His voice, when it came, was calm, smooth, but beneath it, James heard something else, raw, real. I'm not going to pretend I know any secrets, Riley said. Marriage is strange and complicated, especially when it doesn't happen the way you thought it would. Laughter, nervous and curious. But I do know something about second chances, Riley went on, and about how sometimes the people who hurt us the most aren't bad people. They're just scared, or selfish, or too busy climbing a ladder to notice what they've crushed beneath them. The laughter died. Riley didn't falter. And maybe love doesn't always show up the way you expect. Maybe it comes dressed in a 3-piece suit with millions of meetings and a coffee addiction. That got a few chuckles. James' throat felt tight. Riley smiled, tired but warm. But if you're lucky, real lucky, it teaches you something anyway. About grace. About rebuilding. about letting go. When he stepped down, the applause echoed like thunder. James didn't say a word. That night, their hotel suite was quiet. James poured a drink, sat across from Riley on the couch. "You meant all of that?" he said finally. Riley shrugged. "Too late to claim I was drunk?" James smiled faintly. "I didn't know you felt that way." "You didn't ask." Silence stretched between them. Then James spoke softly. "I was engaged once, years ago. Her name was Caroline. She left me after I missed her father's funeral. I was in Shanghai, closing a deal. I thought she'd understand." Riley's expression shifted. He didn't speak, just waited. James swallowed. "She said, I chose work over love. Maybe I did." Riley's voice was quiet. "Sounds familiar." James looked at him. "Evan and Matt," Riley said. "But it's the same, isn't it? You cheated on her with ambition. Either way, someone ends up alone." James looked down. "I'm sorry," he said. And somehow he meant it. Riley didn't answer. Instead, he stood, crossed the room, stopped in front of James. He took the glass from James' hand. Then without a word, he kissed him. It wasn't sharp like last time. It was slow, vulnerable. A question. And James answered it with everything he had. Hands curled into fabric. Lips soft, then hungry. They moved together. Uncertain but sure. Unspoken promises in every touch. They didn't just fall into bed. They chose it. Chose each other. Clothes shed slowly. There was laughter, nervous and real. There were quiet gasps and open eyes. And when it was over, Riley didn't roll away. He stayed. James stayed too. And for the first time in a long, long time, neither of them felt alone. But the morning was different. The morning sun didn't warm the penthouse like it used to. It crept in quieter, slower, casting long shadows across the marble floors, an untouched waffle maker Riley swore he'd use one day. He stood barefoot in the kitchen, wrapped in one of James' sweaters, the soft gray one with sleeves long enough to swallow his hands. He stirred sugar into his coffee, watching the swirl disappear, frowning faintly at the taste. Still bitter. Everything was. James hadn't said anything. "No, last night was." "No, what does this mean?" "No, do you want pancakes?" James walked in like he didn't notice any of it. Like he hadn't held Riley all night. Like he hadn't whispered, "Stay half asleep at 3 a.m. Board meetings moved up. "We'll need to fly out tomorrow night," James said crisply, flipping through a folder. "Also, legal needs to revisit the contract. It expires in 3 weeks." The words hit like a slap. Riley turned. Slowly. "The what?" "Expires?" James didn't look up. "The marriage contract, the 6-month clause, standard review." "Right," Riley said, voice thin. "Standard." James finally looked up, brow raised. "Is there a problem?" Riley laughed. It sounded broken. "Is there a problem? Are you seriously pretending like this?" He gestured between them. "Was just a checkbox on your quarterly report." James's jaw tightened. "We had an agreement, Riley. That's all this ever was." For a beat, the silence screamed. Riley's voice dropped, barely a whisper. "You don't mean that." But James said nothing, so Riley nodded once, sharp. Like cutting a thread. "Got it." He walked past James, set the half-finished coffee on the counter. "Got it." He walked past James. The sweater still hung from his frame like it didn't know, it didn't belong anymore. "Where are you going?" James asked, too quiet. "To remind myself I existed before you." Riley left without slamming the door. It was worse that way. He moved into Sam's apartment, a friend from college, who said nothing when Riley showed up with a duffel bag and tired eyes. Just handed him a spare key and an old blanket and said, "Couch pulls out. So do you, apparently." That got a weak laugh. But mostly, Riley stayed quiet. He answered emails, took long walks, didn't check his phone, except when he did. And James was a machine again. He worked, he scheduled, he barked orders into Bluetooth earpieces. He didn't sleep, but the penthouse was quiet now. Too quiet. The blanket Riley had insisted on keeping folded on the back of the couch was still there, untouched. The cinnamon sugar Riley used for his toast, still in the pantry. James stared at it longer than he'd admit. Meetings blurred together. Dinners went untouched. He stopped making coffee altogether. And at night, alone in bed, staring at the ceiling, he saw Riley's smile like a ghost, heard his laugh in the echo of silence. James had spent his whole life keeping feelings in compartments. Work, strategy, profit, risk. Love had never fit in the spreadsheet. But now, sitting alone in a glass palace of his own making, James finally understood. He hadn't just let Riley go. He had thrown away the only real thing he'd ever had. It had been 14 days and 336 hours since Riley left. James knew because he had counted. He kept thinking Riley might text, might show up, might come home, but the contract was done, and so, apparently, were they. James stared at the now empty closet in the penthouse, the spare toothbrush gone from the bathroom, the scent of cinnamon and coffee faded. He was unraveling in silence. No Riley to tease him about being robotic. No Riley humming while reorganizing the spice rack. No Riley sprawled on the couch in James' clothes, laughing at reruns like the world hadn't fallen apart. Until the company gala. The ballroom buzzed with champagne and polished suits. James barely registered it all. That was until the crowd shifted. And there he was. Riley, in a tailored navy blue suit, his hair soft and tousled like always, but there was something new in the way he stood. Confident, composed, magnetic. James stopped breathing. Riley's smile was polite, nothing more. He moved through the crowd like he belonged there, like he didn't even notice James frozen across the room. Of course he did. James made it to him in 4 purposeful strides. Can we talk? Riley's brow arched. That depends. Are we negotiating terms again, or is this an actual conversation? James flinched. Please. Riley sighed and followed him into a quiet side hall, away from champagne and cameras. James turned to face him, awkward. I didn't mean for it to end like that. Riley tilted his head. But it did. You let it. You let it. I didn't know what to say, James admitted. I panicked. Riley folded his arms. You panicked, so you buried it under paperwork and clauses. James looked at him helplessly. I'm not good at this. And I'm not a deal, James. Riley snapped. I'm a person. You can't just close the file and walk away when it gets messy. James opened his mouth, closed it. Riley took a breath, softer. Now, but steady. I don't need perfect. I never did. I need real. I need honest. So tell me. He stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper. Tell me it meant something. Tell me you felt it too. James' throat worked, and finally, he let go. I love you, Riley, he said again. Firmer now. I think I've been in love with you since the first time you stole my coffee order and insulted my tie. Riley blinked, then he choked on a laugh. It was an ugly tie. James reached for him. Please. I don't want perfect. I just want you. But only if you want me too. Riley looked at him for a long quiet moment. Then he said clearly, if we do this, it's all in. No more contracts, no half rooms, no almosts. James nodded, all in. They kept the penthouse, but the furniture changed. Softer. Lived in. They lived together, but started in separate bedrooms. Riley needed space. James respected that. They went on real dates. About vacations. About possibly adopting a dog. Riley got a new job consulting for the company's wellness and PR teams. Something that let him build programs and work with people instead of just hiding in spreadsheets. And wonders of all wonder, James started taking weekends off. They laughed again. They learned each other. Slowly, intentionally. Until 1 year later on their fake wedding anniversary, James took Riley back to the same rooftop where it all began. Only this time, there were no contracts. No backup plans. Just James, in a crisp dark suit, kneeling with a ring. I don't want perfect. I don't want a clause. I want you. As long as you'll have me. Riley's voice cracked when he said yes. The vow renewal was private. Just them. No flash. No press, no audience. James promised to stop running. Riley promised to never settle for anything less than love again. And this time, when they moved in together, it was home. Epilogue. 1 year, 3 months, and a dog named Espresso. The penthouse wasn't quiet anymore. There was music, low, jazzy. Something Riley had found on vinyl that he claimed made mornings feel like Paris. There was the smell of eggs burning slightly, because James still refused to admit he couldn't cook anything beyond toast and black coffee. And there was barking. Loud, insistent, energetic barking. Espresso. No, that is not a chew toy. James appeared in the doorway, holding a half-mangled designer loafer, and glaring at the little dog with the resigned exasperation of a man who had once sworn his life would never include throw pillows, or anything under 10 pounds. Why is she chewing my things again? He asked flatly. She has taste? Riley said from the couch, grinning. Can't help that. Espresso. A scrappy brown and white mutt with more personality than sense, barked once and proudly plopped onto James' lap, completely unapologetic. James didn't move her. He never did. Riley watched him from across the room. The morning light caught in the edges of James' now loosened tie, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled to the elbows. Domesticity looked good on him, better than tailored perfection ever had. They'd found a rhythm, a life. The penthouse was still theirs, but it had changed. There were plants now, pictures on the wall, a crooked bookshelf Riley had built himself, a permanent dent in the couch from Riley's spot, a coat rack James had once called an eyesore, and now used daily. They had his mugs, a shared grocery list on the fridge, a running debate about the proper way to load the dishwasher. James insisted there was a correct method. Riley, as always, lived to test that theory. They were ordinary in the best way. Later that morning, Riley stepped into James' office at home, barefoot, holding 2 mugs. "You've been in here since breakfast," he said gently, setting one down. James glanced up from his laptop. "Just catching up. It's Sunday." "I know." Riley walked behind him and leaned down, wrapping his arms around James' shoulders. "Remember when you used to call Sundays your catch-up days and I used to throw pillows at you until you gave in?" James smiled faintly. "You still do." "Exactly," Riley whispered into his ear. "Now put the spreadsheet away, Mr. Whitaker. Your very attractive husband is wearing your college hoodie and nothing else." That got his attention. By noon, James had shut the laptop and let Riley drag him out for their Sunday walk. Espresso trotted ahead of them, leash taut, tail wagging like she was leading a parade. They strolled through the park, past familiar trees, familiar faces. Riley waved to the barista who always messed up James' order just to mess with him. James grumbled, but secretly liked it. They stopped for coffee, sat on the same bench where 1 year ago James had told Riley he didn't know how to love. Now he reached over and laced their fingers together like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Because it was? Do you ever think about it?" Riley asked suddenly. James looked at him. "Think about what? How we started, the contract, the lies, the very unromantic proposal that involved a merger clause and fine print." James chuckled. "It was very you. I was in shock, and you were so smug." "I was terrified," James corrected. "Smug is how I hide it." Riley squeezed his hand. "I know." Silence stretched between them, soft and easy. Then James turned to him, more serious now. "I think about it a lot. Not the deal itself, but what we built after. What we chose." Riley smiled. "We're kind of disgusting now, aren't we?" "Absolutely," James said, "and I wouldn't change a thing." That night, after takeout and a half-watched movie, James pulled a small box from his coat pocket. Riley blinked. "If that's another ring, we've officially hit married 3 times by accident status." James rolled his eyes. "It's not a ring." "Open it." Inside was a key. Riley frowned. "To what?" "The lake house," James said. "Ours now." "I signed the papers this morning?" Riley's jaw dropped. "You bought the lake house? We always said we'd get out of the city a few weekends a year. I thought, maybe it's time." Riley stared at him. "You're serious?" James nodded. "I want slow mornings and burnt pancakes and you reading by the window. I want—" He paused, unsure, then finished softly. "A forever that doesn't feel like a business plan." Riley didn't cry. Not really. His eyes just got shiny in that way that made James reach for him without thinking. "I love you," James said simply. Riley nodded, smiling through it. "I know, I never stopped." And then, quietly, like it didn't need fireworks or fanfare, they kissed, just them. No contracts, no clauses, only love, only home.